How about that guy? I don't think anyone saw that one coming.
That did not sound very, I want to be a Giant for life.
Well, there's two parts to this. So part number one, I think he laid out a beautiful hypocrisy, and he's right about it.
Mm-hmm.
In one breath, hey, we need you to win games.
Yeah.
Absolute fact. If the Giants are going to beat Washington, I know a lot of Giant fans may not care about that anymore, but there is a game on Sunday. I'm sure some of you are watching it. Some of you care about it. Their best chance to win is to defeat Saquon Barkley. That is an absolute, undisputable fact.
Right.
But then Saquon also mentions, and then hypocritically, when we're talking about contracts, they see you have so much mileage on you.
You're right. They'll use it against me.
Yeah.
They'll use my success against me. And even if it helps us win a football game, they're going to use it against me. So, again, he's 27 years old. It's not like he's not even yet. I think he's still 26. Whatever he is, he's young for a running back. But we saw what happened with Dalvin Cook as a 27-year-old last offseason.
Yeah.
He could not find a contract. Could not. Now, part of that was because Minnesota released him. It was after, right? It was after the draft. I think it was
pre-camp after draft.
Yeah, it was definitely.
You think that would have mattered?
I do, because you make your roster decisions right around the draft. And so it's like, all right, free agency had already been going on. So you get free agents, then you don't fill certain spots in free agency, you draft those guys. Then all of a sudden, Dalvin Cook's available, and he's coming off of injury. So I think it impeded him having multiple teams needing him. So it became a situation where the longer he waited, the better off he was.
Right.
So somebody gets hurt and he can fill a role. It never came to fruition. So he had to sign at a place with like the Jets.
Right.
That just had a little bit of a.
But he also doesn't look like he has that much left. So it's weird. Saquon's right about everything he says. But I also, and I think we all do, we understand the GM's position.
Of course.
Who says, we don't want to give you fully guaranteed money or a lot of guaranteed money over multiple years. That did sound like a guy, though, and that's the thing you took out of it. That doesn't sound like a guy who's loved being here.
Well, it's not. I think he's loved being here and having the success that he's had here. I'm not gonna rewrite his history, but that answer didn't sound like he's only thinking about staying with the Giants.
No, he mentioned other teams and other contracts he may get.
But prior to this year, that's all you heard. I want to be a Giant for life.
This is the first time you heard Saquon like that?
The first time I felt him sound like that.
Oh, jeez.
So I think it's just the reality. I don't think he's changed his desire. I think it's just he knows what's been offered to him.
Well, he also knows I'm on a 2-8 team. They're going to give me the football a lot. Great. I got a chance to put up numbers. I guess a chance to win. Who cares? I'm not going anywhere. And then at the end of the day, they're going to screw me again, and they're going to just tag me.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to let me go.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Giants, even if they were having a good year, even if he was having a great year, I was skeptical back in August and early September when we talked about this that they were ever going to give him a long-term contract.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a guy who, understandably, is a little like, screw this.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is. If someone offers him a better deal, I think he's gone.
Here's the second clip of Saquon Barkley talking about loyalty. Oh, this will be interesting.
You hope the team see that, either this team or any team sees that as loyalty or
loyalty means nothing. Loyalty, that don't mean nothing. No matter how loyal, no matter how committed you are, it's a business at the end of the day. That's something that I've learned. So for me, it's the way I try to handle that is not really focus on that. Try my best not to think about it. I feel like every week, I have to answer a question about it, which I get it. You guys are doing your job, and that's the only time it really crosses my mind. To be completely honest, because if not, I would go insane. I would lose my mind if I was able to focus on that. So I try to keep the main thing, and continue to enjoy the process, take it one day.
What do you think of that?
Wow, I mean, it clarifies what I was just saying.
He's done here, man. He don't want to be here.
He's not even thinking about it.
You know
anymore.
what?
Yeah, he's not thinking about it till he's asked about it. But then when he asked about it,
I'm saying he's not thinking about, I want to be a Giant for life.
Oh, no. There was nothing out of that made you think
That's
that.
a major issue then.
Why?
And I've actually turned in recent weeks and been very pro Saquon dealing with all this. Here's the problem, Tiki. We're a couple weeks removed from the trade deadline where all we heard was the courtesy of the organization and Saquon both sitting down and agreeing he wouldn't be traded anywhere. And that was about loyalty. That wasn't about the best interest of what the Giants were, because you know what the best interest of the Giants were if he's going to walk and talk about other teams now. And I get it that the contract negotiations were rough, and I'm not denying that. But the best interest of the Giants in a lost year was to trade him and maybe get a second-round pick like they got for Leonard Williams.
So the problem is I don't know if there were many offers for Saquon Barkley.
But that's fine.
That's also what we
heard. No. But wait, hold on. Because I'm actually on your side on this. The one thing I'll push back on. is that the Giants insisted on shutting down phone calls. That was the reporting around this, that they're shutting down any kind of phone call. That sounds like there's interest. That sounds like, I don't know if it's a second-round pick, but it sounds like they're getting something.
I actually heard it as, don't even call us. We're not talking about Saquon.
So what do you make of that?
Isn't that respect? Isn't that loyalty? That we sat down and said, I know things went sour. We figured out a way to get you here before camp. You agreed. We went back and forth. And we made sure, despite the best interest long-term of the team was probably looking for some kind of trade, to sit you down, which they didn't do with Leonard. Well, they did sit down.
But Joe Shane's not that way. I mean, does he feel like he's just cold-blooded and ruthless?
But don't you have to be a little cold-blooded and ruthless?
I think he needs to be after this. This is a bad look, man. Why did they not trade this guy?
Not for Saquon. I don't think that's the case for Saquon.
But Tiki, what's better for the Giants, to let Saquon walk at the end of the year, or to have recouped the second-round pick if they're losing and he's not talking about loyalty anyway?
Yeah, but I think as a fan, you get so enamored with second-round pick or a third-round pick or an extra fifth-round pick because you can maneuver and you can still do this and still do, like, at the end of the day, drafting is a crapshoot.
True.
It means absolutely nothing. And in fact, most rookies don't produce. Every now and then you get some guys that do, but a lot of them they can't figure it out. They're not smart enough. They're not physically capable enough. They crap out in training camp. How many rookies do we see groin injuries and quads and hamstrings because they're not used to the speed? And then they get halfway through the season and it's like, all right, my season's over. Where are we going for Thanksgiving? And you ain't going nowhere for Thanksgiving, dude. Right? You're here. You have a job to do. It's why I always hated rookies. There's only one I told you that I liked, and that was Shockey because he got it right away. Rookies are great, and if they develop into great players, fantastic. But to sacrifice one of your captains, the offensive catalyst for your team, the guy who is the voice in that locker room for a draft pick in his franchise tagged year. I mean, it's not about loyalty. It's just I don't think Joe Shane's that kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like he dragged them along this whole offseason, like disrespected him to the point where, he was pissed. Let's face it. Let's call it like it is. Saquon was pissed this offseason.
And I think he had a right to be, by the way.
Of course he did. And so then to trade him at the deadline?
But here's the thing, Tiki. And you're right.
Because if you trade him at the deadline, you could send him to, I don't know,
a contender.
Green Bay.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
you could send them anywhere.
Yeah, but you're probably sending him to a good team.
That's it.
You?
But Tiki,
who else is trading for him?
I don't know.
For trade for a running back? I mean, Buffalo? Who knows? Bottom line is this, though, Tiki. You're right. You've been in the locker room and rookies and all of that. But when I think of trading Saquon for a second-round pick, I'm not thinking about the rookie in the rookie year. What I'm thinking about is this team is not in win-now mode, and I need to build up those teams. And by the way, I'm floating. I don't know what he would have gotten, but if it was a second-round pick,
it wouldn't have been a second-round pick.
Okay, but why we fell in love with the Leonard Williams trade is that is not some flyer on a guy who might perform on special teams. You're talking about a potential founding piece that even if his rookie year stinks, you could keep building. And when we just had the argument, whether it was yesterday or 2 days ago, about drafting the quarterback 1 or 2 or trading up for the assets.
Yeah.
You were the one that fought for the assets. This team needs to build. This team needs to have depth. Well, guess what? You know what helps them do that? Trading a player who might leave or right now you think is going to leave at the end of the year to get one of those pieces that you were so profound about with the quarterback 2 days ago.
Here's the other thing, and nobody ever thinks about this. When you have like so many draft picks, the Giants have had this in previous years. It's almost a wasted exercise. Because you're drafting all of these guys. You can't keep all of them, right? The draft pool is only so high. There's only so much that so many of those guys are going to pan out for you. And so the last thing you want to do is cut draft picks because it makes it look bad. You look bad when you draft a guy in his 5th round. And God, you know what? We had 3 second rounders. We had 2 fourth rounders, and this 5th rounder. We got to cut him. It looks bad. And so I think the draft pick thing sounds good, but it's a lot more complicated than just having a draft pick.
Why didn't you want to trade Saquon Barkley? Was it because you thought the room would fall apart right now? Is it because you wanted him next year? Like, what's the reason?
It just felt unbecoming of a guy who was developing into, not developing into, because he is a large portion of the Giant fan base, current fan base's favorite player.
What if they treated him the way they treated Leonard, where they said, look.
Leonard is different, though.
No, but I mean in terms of.
Leonard wasn't here as a rookie.
No, I agree.
Leonard didn't win Rookie of the Year. He didn't, capture your emotion. He's a very good player. And honestly, he's actually better off in Seattle, where he's filling a significant role for them because they can put one of their defensive ends, DeMont Jones, back at DN.
No, but I mean
moving him around.
But I mean,
so
in
there
terms,
was a real value for him, and it didn't feel like that connection was here with Leonard.
No,
Williams.
but I mean in terms of treating Saquon with the respect of, look, we do believe in loyalty, Saquon. If you want to get traded, here's what's out there for you. Do you want us to do it? And I think that's a classy way. They did it with Leonard Williams. And you're right, Saquon's very different.
He's also 30.
I know, but forget about the difference in the player. I'm saying if they handled it that way, would you have been okay with it? They're giving him the choice. If Saquon says, no, I want to be a Giant, okay, we're not going to make the trade.
I guess, but I mean.
They shut down every phone call.
I didn't mind it. And honestly, I don't think Giant fans minded it.
I don't think they minded it until they heard Saquon Barkley today in that audio clip say loyalty means nothing, and he cut the guy off in saying it, which means he's passionate about it, and he's not even wrong for saying it. I'm not critical of Saquon Barkley. I agree with him.
There's no loyalty in this game.
So then why did the Giants feel a need? That's why I ask you why you wouldn't have traded him. Why wouldn't they?
Because I think there are intangible reasons that have nothing to do with production, nothing to do with what a guy does on a Sunday that are important to an organization. And I think Saquon fits that mold.
Do you think it's important to re-sign him at the end of the year then?
I think it is. But do I think they are? Not necessarily.
But hold on. Now, that's my other issue. If they're not going to re-sign him, because I remember what I said to you after they didn't trade him. I said, Tiki, I think I'm wrong about this. I think the Giants are going to hold on to him, whether it's a tag or maybe Saquon comes off what he was asking for and it's like a long-term contract with not that much risk. If they're not going to keep him with one of those avenues, then I think it makes the idea of them not trading him a few weeks ago even worse.
But I
then what was the point? To keep him for these last 9 weeks to do what?
I feel like, and this is a New York thing, because you all are so baseball minded. Right? You can't help but think about everything in the construct of what baseball does to you.
In terms of trading guys at the deadline?
Or just like, all right, we're not going to sign this guy. Let's go get an asset for him.
Right.
Let's go get a prospect for him. Football doesn't work that way.
It does now. Leonard Williams got you an asset back.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's
Carolina traded Christian McCaffrey and got a lot of assets back.
It's so rare. It's so rare.
I think it's becoming more common now.
It is becoming more common, but it's not a perfected science. Like there's no empirical evidence that says if you trade this guy for this guy at this point in his career and you get this back, then 5 years from now, analytically, it'll be worth it. Like there's no science behind it. There's science behind, or empirical evidence, I should say. So data. There's no data behind it in the NFL. There's data behind it in Major League Baseball. It's why it's almost become a science in and of itself on when to move on from a player and trade him for a prospect, and what that prospect's going to do to your farm system, and what that farm system ultimately does to your minor leagues, and what it ultimately does for the Major League club. Like football isn't that. But in New York, we all feel that, or at least I don't, but you all feel that. Like you feel like, if you just got another asset, then we had value for Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley's value is on the field for the New York Giants, period. Whether that's winning 3 more games for the rest of the season or keeping that locker room together and tight as they try to hang on to this culture that Brian Daboll built a year ago. Right? Without that, the whole house of cards falls down. So, yeah, Saquon might not be here next year, but I think he plays a valuable role in what the Giants are doing for the rest of this season.
Did that convince you, Sean? Because that's actually pretty compelling.
I don't disagree on the surface of what he's saying, and I think he's right about we're baseball-minded. But in the NFL, this is true. At least 30% of your roster turns over every year. So there's this team we have this year that we're talking about with the culture and Saquon, a lot of it is not going to be here next year, and that's not going to matter that Saquon was there. So you're right. It would hold everything together, and you don't want to see the coach fired or the GM fired and all of that. But I'm not buying that for this team where I'm looking at it as a fan, for this team to get where I think they could be in the next 5 years, 2 years. I don't think holding on to Saquon for these 8 weeks in return for what could be a good asset is much more beneficial than that asset.
So look, I am so glad I never had contract issues. I never had a public contract issue. So I never had anyone like the fan base talking, what about me? Like, we don't need him. Forget him. I never had that, right? I signed the deal after my 2000 season. We went to the Super Bowl. That next offseason, I got it done. I was here for the rest of my career. Never became an issue. there were some things that went on behind the scenes that were, like because I was out playing my contract, Ernie Accorsi gave me a little bump in my salary, a bonus, and things of that nature. But it was never public. Nobody ever knew it. And I'm glad, because it creates this false perception about a guy. Like we're now analyzing every word that Saquon says relative to his tenure with the Giants. And in some people's mind, they're going to judge him off of that, right? Just kind of like you're trying to. They're going to judge him. And that's not fair to Saquon, because the business of the game has gotten so complex, we forget the emotion that player brings to you. And I bring that up for a reason. I played on some bad teams, dude. Like, they were just...
I remember some of them,
They were just terrible. Like, why are you even going to the game? And I remember fans would tell me, thank God you're on this team, right? I go watch a game because I know you're going to do something fun. That's how a lot of people feel about Saquon. It's not about the wins and losses. Yeah, it is. It should be. But I kind of like seeing Saquon do what Saquon does. And there's an entertainment value to that ultimately this is what we're entertainers, right? It's physical and it means something, and it's you're always searching for the championship. You're trying to grow and get better, and there's lessons in that, and that are metaphorical. But I think ultimately you want to be entertained. If Saquon Barkley's not on this team, like it'd be hard to watch this.
No, I think you. So I've had this debate with people before about entertainment versus. Well, I just want to win a championship.
Yeah,
and I tend to fall in line of
not winning a championship.
Let me try to give you a good example of this, because this is the way I feel, and not everyone feels this way. Believe it or not, it was like one of the first sports arguments Craig and I had was I told him it's stupid for the Knicks to trade for Russell Westbrook. It doesn't help you get closer to a title. And he responded very similar to you. Yeah. He said, I just want to be entertained.
Okay, but Russell Westbrook has no equity here.
No. I get it, but it's similar.
Saquon,
I don't know, but what I mean is it's not about the player. It's about a fan saying, I want to have a reason to watch my team. I get that. I respected where he's coming from. I respect where you're coming from. And I get that there are Giant fans who say, if Saquon isn't playing, why am I watching? Mm-hmm. Then there's a segment of us, and I raise my hand, I'm one of them, who says, I'd rather be bored watching bad football or basketball or baseball if I know or I think it gets me to the greater good.
Yeah, but
does that make sense?
Maybe watching it. But I promise you one thing, you're not going.
Oh, you're talking to the wrong guy. The wrong guy. I've seen some bad teams, and I've been there.
How many Jet games you've been to?
No, I don't like going to football games. So that's different, though.
That's exactly. A lot of people don't like. Think about the fans in Connecticut. My kids lived in Connecticut.
But that's about the sport, not about what's on the roster.
I got divorced. I went to Connecticut.
Right.
My kids moved to Connecticut. I was in Jersey. I had season tickets. I was playing that stupid-ass PSL for years. We went a couple of games. My kids were like, Dad, it's just too far. I don't want to go. So if if the team was great, we would have went.
No, I agree with you.
Right? So think about that. Think about the season ticket holder or the fan that doesn't live close. And all of a sudden, it's like, dude, they have there's nothing exciting.
No, I get that.
You are not getting in your car and driving to a swamp in New Jersey and watching a game, even if you tailgate and have good fun, to go into a product that is not watchable.
But
you're just not doing
I agree
it.
with you.
You might watch it on TV and tweet about it and say, oh, man, this team is awesome. But you're not going.
I agree with you. That's a lot of people.
That's part of it.
That's a lot of people. And the reason why the football thing doesn't work with me is I never go to a lot of games. It's just the way I enjoy consuming football. I've gone to 70 lost basketball seasons, though.
If Aaron Rodgers was healthy all season long,
I'd be at the same amount of games.
I think you're lying to us. And the Jets were.
I'm going next Friday.
The Jets were 7-1, and you constantly got offers to go to games.
No.
You wouldn't go?
No. I'm not a good example of this.
You wouldn't.
I'm telling you,
Tiki,
wouldn't
ride the wave of enthusiasm.
It has nothing to do with enthusiasm.
They're playing the Miami Dolphins.
It has nothing to do with enthusiasm.
The New England Patriots.
Bro, there's a reason why I go to the same amount of Nets and Mets games, whether they're good or not. Football's the kind of sport I love to consume at home. I like to go to one game a year where I could bring my son, and it works. That's why I'm going to Black Friday, Jets Dolphins.
So you're the wrong kind of fan. I'm not
no.
To you
In this conversation, when it comes to football and the way I consume it, I'm not the right guy because I'm not a season ticket holder. I fully admit that. Mm-hmm. And the way I go to games wouldn't change based on who's on the roster. You're 1,000% right. when it comes to the other sports that I do consume and go to a lot of games on, I can tell you firsthand through experience you're wrong because I have gone and sat through crap.
Baseball basketball, baseball, it's different.
I know it. You're right.
There's
That's why.
games.
I know, but I'm saying as a consumer, I still went. So, but you're right in that the majority of people represent what you're saying. I'm not even arguing with you. I'm saying I'm the wrong example. That's all I'm saying.
My mind is blown. There's two things I wanted to say real quickly. Number one, Tiki swayed me on one thing. As I sit here right now, I'm not mad at Saquon Barkley. I'm mad at the Giants. I am. Because Saquon has every right to say it. The Giants should be a little more cold-blooded. That line stuck with me. Number two, the only thing I'll push back on that with Tiki, football is also different in that the vast majority, specifically the Giants, are all season tickets. So the tickets are bought and paid for. From a business model.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about the money. I'm talking about this asses in seats.
I don't know that anybody is going to that Giant Patriot game more because Saquon Barkley's there. The team stinks. You're either going to go or you're not going to go.
You know what you swayed me on?
What's that?
No seriousness. Because this is the thing I can't calculate. But you've been in a room, so I'm like, maybe you can calculate it. Culture is a word that annoys me. It feels like it's a buzzword, but there may be something to it. If they traded Saquon Barkley for a third-round pick, and the locker room, and we saw what was going on the sidelines, which you said is nothing.
It would feel empty.
It would feel, well, I think things could get worse.
The locker room would feel empty.
And could bad things happen?
Well, it creates a void. So when a void is created, something fills it. Now, that could be something good, or it could be something really toxic.
And